Morning, guys. It's 7 o'clock on a Monday. Yes, I have a job. I'm just on vacation. And I'm out here to try to help settle the debate 3D printed versus purchased. Yes, there are advantages to both. Yes, there are disadvantages to both. And it seems like it's a pretty polarizing topic in the comments. So I'm here to try to help level the playing field with pros and cons to both. So let's get started, shall we? I'm gonna put the planes on the camera and not this ugly mug, so let's go. Conveniently enough, we have 3D printed airplanes today, and we have a Foamie. We're gonna go with pro number one on the 3D printed airplanes, and that is variety. Guys, you don't have to wait for the major manufacturers to decide, we're gonna make a Horton today, we're gonna make a Skyhawk, or we're gonna make a thrust vectoring Beast today. These guys don't have the logistical craziness that the major manufacturers have, in the sense of there's no committee deciding, yes, this is going to sell, and yes, we're going to spend the exorbitant amount of money on the massive aluminum molds to make all these foam parts. These guys are selling a digital file that you're just purchasing the file, you print it yourself, and you build it yourself. So it's much less craziness in just overall. Which leads me into pro number two. Cost and availability of parts. Now, this is a 57-inch HO229, and it costs about $10 to print this airframe. I know I'm not including the 3D printer or the electronics. That was one thing that everybody always gets me on. 3D printer is an investment. You are buying that one time. That is a one-time expense, and you have it for the duration of the life of that 3D printer, which could be thousands of hours. So you could print 100 airplanes on that 3D printer, right? And the electronics that are in the airplane. And again, once you buy it, you have it. Unless you're cratering this thing into the ground, you have those electronics forever. You know, you break a wing off and you got to reprint some stuff. You're reprinting it for pennies on the dollar. Compared to this, where the initial cost of the airplane is high enough as it is. You're paying $500-$600 for this thing. It's assembled overseas. Parts are made overseas. And the availability of the parts is a finite lifespan. Once this mold is gone and you can't get parts anymore, if you body it, you're SOL. No more parts. So what are you going to do? You're sitting here with electronics with your thumb up your butt. But if you have a 3D printer, you just figure out what's a 90 millimeter EDF I could build. Bing, bang, boom, push a button, your 3D printer goes to town. You got an airplane. Finally, pro number three of the 3D printed airplanes. Typically, these guys who are building these airplanes are very passionate aviation enthusiasts. And I'm not saying that the guys that build these foamies aren't. But from what I've heard from people that are involved in this industry, there's a lot of edits that have to be made to these airplanes before they're ready for manufacture. And even after that, there are some foamies that I've flown that have zero washout in the wings. So it bites really hard once you stall it. Washout is kind of like a curvature of the wing. That's a whole different thing. But these airplanes, they're able to be designed 100 times over until the designer is satisfied with how the airplane flies, which I think Kyle made this airplane 6-7 times before he was happy with how it flew, before he put it up for sale. So you have the passion, you have the love for the hobby, and you have the knowledge that comes with these guys who are designing these airplanes. They have their own airfoil, they have everything, and everything is always changeable. If they decide, okay, 6 months down the road, you know what? This was an issue. I'm going to re-release these files and I'm going to send them to everybody who purchased it for free with the, what do they call? With the amendments to the file. Done. Boom. Can't do that with this. Now, unfortunately, we have the cons with 3D printed airplane. Con number one, it depends on the filament you're using. PLA is a filament that softens at a very low temperature. So if you have these things just out in the sun on a very hot day, they will melt. Even the LWPLA will melt. So you're going to want to print something in like ASA or something that has a higher temperature resistance. But once you do that, you mitigate that con altogether. But it's all about mitigating that con. With better filament comes higher cost. So you're adding cost to your pocketbook, and it becomes less cost effective, where it's still cost effective compared to the foamies, but it just becomes a little bit more expensive. And you got to learn how to print with a new filament, which once you learn how to print with the filament, you're good. But, you know, just a slight little disadvantage. Con number 2, 3D printed airplanes are more like balsa airplanes in the sense of once you body these things, it's harder to fix than a foamy. Now, a foamy, if it's just a clean break where you can slap some glue in there and fix it, you're jonesing. You put some epoxy in there, you back up and flying at the field. This thing, once it blows up, you're either going to have to use a hot knife and completely cut off the part that was broken, or if the airframe's totally shungad, you got to reprint the whole airframe. Now, it's time, but you are still saving money. So even though it is a con, you are still saving money because it is 3D printed. You're just losing out on time. And then con number 3, you're going to need a lot more tools and a lot more of that other jazz, and your wife's probably not going to be happy that you have a whole nother hobby ready to go. So be prepared to hear it from the missus, unless your missus is mad cool. Like, thank God my missus, she's cool as an ice tray, man. I am blessed with my wife. So just be prepared for that. But once you're rocking and rolling with this thing, man, you got the world at your fingertips. And I mean it, man. I've made at least 50 different 3D printed airplanes, and not every one of them flew great. Sometimes you get the oddball, small-time designer that it's his first time doing it and it flies like a bag of squirrels. But for the most part, these things are incredible. On to the foamies. Pro number 1. You push a button, you pay a person a bunch of shekels, you got this thing showed up your front door in a box, you put a bunch of screws in it, bing, bang, boom, Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your auntie, and you're flying. So it's much less time. So it's the direct relationship. You spend less time on it, but you got to pay more money. Pro number 2 was addressed with 3D printed airplanes. If you crash and it's a clean break, you slap some epoxy on that bitch and you're rocking and rolling. Boom. You know, you could be out here at the field with some 5-minute epoxy, fix it, and you're jonesing. With these, if it blows up, it blows up. You got to go home and rip everything out and then start all over. So that's another pro. And then pro number 3, in my opinion, when you buy these things, right, it's essentially a piece of foam with a bunch of electronics in there. So once something happens, you just basically had a foam pinata blow up in front of you, and you got tons of electronics to put in a new 3D printed airplane. So I know that was kind of biased, but I really don't care. I'm pretty biased about these bad boys. This guy Kyle's got me addicted to these things. So yeah, guys, that is my assessment on the pros and the cons. If I missed anything, let me know in the comments. You want to call me a schmuck? Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I will see you on the next video. Have a great time flying, and I always appreciate you guys watching.